Hey again, Jonathan here from Catapult Case, and we're going to continue post-installation. It'll be pretty much the same regardless of if you install to Windows or in Docker on something like Unraid or a Pi. We'll just do it on the Windows for now. What I'm going to do is talk you through some baseline setup. So let's go ahead and open the dashboard. I'm going to use the tray icon down here, open the dashboard. And we'll land on a dashboard which will have nothing on it right now. This was a clean install, and there are some settings here for the dashboard, but we'll come back to that later on. Quick navigation. As you move across the nav bar up here, you've got the dashboard. Streams, which would be any active streams that are running, and of course there's none right now. Junctions. A junction is where we connect data collectors to data targets and select the sensors and so on, the layouts, and we'll configure that later on. Devices, of course, is going to be where we manage and add devices. It's going to be pretty obvious. Services is going to be where we configure and add services. And just for clarity, when I say a service, we're talking things like MQTT brokers. There's a proof of concept for Home Assistant and Grafana, still under development. You'll see that again in the future. Collectors, as I say, this is where we connect to external data sources. It is excellent if you already have something like Home Assistant running. You don't need to re-add everything into JunctionRelay. It's really designed to work alongside all your existing sensor device data collecting services, but you can add them directly in here as well, and there's quite a few already in this initial version. We'll come back to that. The FrameEngine is where you create visual templates, UIs if you will. I'm going to go ahead and load the default templates. Let's navigate into one of these quickly just to show you and move it along. It's a pretty intuitive drag and drop interface. I can drag in sensors, I can configure the frame, the background, and so on. We'll do a full video, probably multiple videos on this, particularly when we're using the Rive background, which is a wonderful tool if you're old enough to remember the old internet, Shockwave Flash. It's very similar to that kind of experience where you design animations and you have what they're calling them state machines, and you can associate your sensors to those machines. And as I click over here, you can see the background elements are updating. Very cool. We'll come back to that in another video. Payloads would be if you're just choosing to send standard JSON to your target devices. You can choose to send a config payload first and then subsequent sensor payloads. You'll see there's a lot of templates here. For example, this one's really set up to send to a device expecting an LVGL configuration, and the sensor payloads would look like this. Config payload would look like that. And down below, there's lots of ways to configure this payload. Again, full videos coming on that later on. Let's quickly stop into the settings. You can run JunctionRelay completely unauthenticated. If you just want it to be offline mode, you don't want no cloud functionality, this is for you. You can also set up a local authentication, so a local user, and this will just lock down the UI here. If someone has access to your local network, they're going to be able to get to all sorts of things you wouldn't want them to anyway, but this can at least prevent some of that front end fiddling, and we won't do that right now. What we can do is go down to the third option, which is JunctionRelay Cloud. This will let you take advantage of a whole bunch of online functionality. You can do it for free, and I'm just going to go ahead and show you what that looks like. So it's going to ask me to sign in to JunctionRelay Cloud. If you don't have credentials, of course, you can sign up here. I'm going to go ahead and log in because I already have some. Okay. There we go. And now I am signed in with JunctionRelay Cloud, which will unlock some additional functionality for us. It's all optional. You get a free license just to go ahead and use, which will let you access the cloud dashboard. And if I click on that, there we go. It's going to ask me to log into the cloud as well. Very nice. Some baseline functionality provided for free, but if you do want to support the project, you can go and purchase a Pro license. I have one already here, but if I didn't, I would be able to see the options to purchase one here. And if I do need to make changes to my Clerk account, I can get there from Manage Account. Very nice. Okay, scrolling down a little bit, we've got session management. This will let you see who's logged in and where. When I log in with the cloud account, the backend will authenticate as well, so we can see that happened here. Every instance of your backend will have a identifier. This one is .NET Dev, and yeah, that's all. You won't have as many as I have here, most likely, but you can install and run JunctionRelay on multiple backends, log in from multiple devices. In fact, I have some cloud devices that are logging in all by themselves, and they refresh. This one has expired, so that's a bad example, but we'll do dedicated videos later on what that looks like. We've got backend and database management. As I mentioned, this backend has identified itself as .NET.Dev, and you can give it a friendly name here if you want to change that. You can do local backups by selecting what you want to include and pressing download, and then that will of course download to your computer, and you can keep that safe. If you do have a downloaded backup that you need to restore, you can go ahead and do so here. Once you do upload a backup, you'll need to restart the server, and then that will take effect. If you are a pro license holder, you'll be able to take advantage of cloud backups. The limits here are likely to change as we get users onboarded and see what the right balance is, but great feature. Send it to the JunctionRelay cloud automatically at the retention frequency and frequency that you want. Okay. We have stream history, so while the junctions are running, you can optionally save some of that metadata to JunctionRelay in memory, and you can configure here how much memory you wish to use. Obviously nothing's running right now, we'll do a detailed video on that later on. Dashboard settings we saw earlier. This is for some UI elements. You can update how fresh that data is to the back end, because obviously this front end here is running in your browser, that it does need to use a WebSocket connection. So a few things you can fiddle with here. I'm going to leave it all as it is. I will quickly show you if I'm on the dashboard and I choose to dismiss the settings from here. You can see that little card has now disappeared. If I go back to settings, I have the option to restore it to the dashboard from here. So that's nice. I can keep the dashboard clean. Firmware cache. This is for downloaded firmwares. It keeps some information, so it's not always grabbing that data off the internet real time. You can clear that cache from here. Very much under development right now. We're not going to focus too much on that. Likewise, table columns. Here you can go in and clear any of the local storage in your browser for columns and display layouts. We can look at that later on as well. But here at the bottom, finally, you do see all of the possible settings that you can play with, and you probably don't need to touch many of them, but we'll come and revisit these as and when that makes sense. So, JunctionRelay is, at this point, ready to add your first data collector. So that's what we'll do in your next video. All right, cheers.